Hi, everyone. So last week we talked about the revolution and we ended with the first battle, right? So, spoiler alert, the colonists won and they ended up becoming their own country, the United States of America. They got their freedom from Great Britain. But it wasn't an overnight thing, and it took a while. In fact, we also had to convince ourselves, like the colonists had to tell themselves that they were now a free country and they were no longer under British rule. And that's where the Declaration of Independence comes in. So today we're going to analyze the meaning and implications of the Declaration of Independence. So here's what went down. We started fighting this Revolutionary War, and things were difficult at first because the colonists were just a ragtag group of guys with guns. They were disorganized. They didn't have things going very well for them. And the British Army was the world's mightiest army, right? So in order to win, they needed a really good cause to fight for. And at the time they were like, well, what are we fighting for? Well, we're fighting to be not British. Okay, what does that mean? I don't know. And so in the middle of the Revolutionary War, right? It wasn't at the beginning, it wasn't at the end. In the middle of the Revolutionary War, they got together and they decided, you know what? Let's do it. Let's declare ourselves our own country. Let's just tell the world that we're our own country now, and that will give us a cause to keep on fighting. And so they got together and they wrote the Declaration of Independence. So here's a famous painting. It's called the Signing of the Declaration of Independence. Very original name for a painting, right? But here we have John Hancock sitting in his president's chair at this Continental Congress. We've got who is that? Thomas Jefferson, the tall one there. Now he's the one that like wrote with his hand all of this here. That is Thomas Jefferson's fancy penmanship. He wrote the Declaration of Independence, but he did it with the input of all these other guys in the room. So we've got John Adams is there, we've got Benjamin Franklin is there, and several other incredibly prestigious men of their time were in this room giving input to the Declaration of Independence, right? So it was signed on July 4th, 1776, but I'm going to tell you about something that we should have signed it sooner, and we'll get there. So the Declaration was divided into three different parts, right? As we saw, it was this really long thing. In fact, let me go back to it. If there were three parts, like, show me the parts. There's no parts. It's just one great big long chunky paragraph. This is like a language arts teacher's nightmare, am I right? There's no organization to this. Thomas Jefferson was just like, I'm going to keep on writing and I'm just going to keep on going. Oh my gosh, he'd probably get a D if he tried to turn this in for an essay today. But maybe he was just trying to save space instead of putting it into paragraphs. At any rate, the three different parts of the Declaration. The first part, it lays down our rights as human beings. And this is going to be really important. We're going to be talking about this later on this week. Our rights as human beings. Who are we and what are our rights? What belongs to us because we are human? The second part of the Declaration was this big old long list of crimes that the king has committed against the colonies. So they were basically saying the king did this to us and he did that to us and he taxed our sugar and there was the Currency Act and there was the Townshend Acts and he taxed our precious tea and we had to throw it all into the ocean because of him. It was just this big old long list of crimes that King George had committed against the colonies, basically making the argument that because he did those horrible things to us, we're going to break up with him. The Declaration of Independence was like a really significant breakup letter. Like instead of a boyfriend and girlfriend breaking up, it was like colonies breaking up with their mother country. And so the last part of the Declaration of Independence was the colonies saying, we're breaking up with you, England. this just isn't working. We need to see other people. It's not you, it's me. Actually, no, it's you. So all those things that we associate with breakup letters, that was kind of what the Declaration of Independence was. The United States, which didn't exist yet, right, was breaking up with England. So those are the three parts of the Declaration: telling everyone what our rights are, telling everyone that the king has committed a bunch of crimes against us, and therefore we're going to break up with the king and we're going to become our own independent country now. So a quick little timeline of the Declaration. The Second Continental Congress met in Philadelphia in 1776 between May and July. So they got together and they're like, what should we do? What should our declaration say? Took them a few months to kind of put it all together. On July 2nd, it was ready to be signed. Thomas Jefferson had finished the draft. It looked beautiful, but for some reason, they didn't sign it yet. And here's why. The first draft of the Declaration of Independence, remember that long list of crimes that the king committed, right? One of the crimes that they accused the king of was the slave trade. They accused King George of participating in slavery, which is true, right? The king and England were participating in the slave trade. They were capturing people from Africa, putting them on ships, and selling them on auction blocks in the colonies. So the Declaration of Independence was condemning King George for slavery. But here's the problem. You know who else was participating in slavery? Like, almost all of the guys in that room at the Second Continental Congress and all of their friends throughout the colonies. You see, the colonists were also doing slavery. So it would be hypocritical if they accused King George of slavery, but they kept on doing it themselves. So instead of stopping slavery, they said, well, let's just not accuse King George of that crime. So they scratched it out, and Thomas Jefferson had to write the whole thing all over again. And then on July 4th, they finally all signed it. So the reason we celebrate the 4th of July as our Independence Day is not because it sounds better, right? It sounds better because we've been saying it our whole lives. The 4th of July, the 4th of July. But it should have been the 2nd of July. The 2nd of July should have been the day that we celebrate the birth of our country. But it's the 4th of July because we didn't accuse King George of slavery. Because if we did accuse King George of slavery, then we'd be hypocritical if we didn't stop doing it ourselves. So here's what I really want you to hear from that. We had a moment in our history, the birth of our country, right? The signing of the Declaration of Independence is considered the birthday of our country. We could have began our country slave-free. We could have ended slavery when we started the United States of America. But instead, too many of those people wanted to keep their slaves. And so they didn't accuse King George of slavery, and they signed the new version of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th. Doesn't that make you proud to be an American? Right? So then what happened is it was copied and sent all throughout the colonies. You see, the Declaration of Independence was not meant to be read to the king, right? People think, oh, it was a letter that we sent to the king and we broke up with him. No, 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 right? He may never have even seen the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence was meant as a letter to ourselves. We wrote this letter to ourselves to tell ourselves that we have rights, the king has violated those rights, and we're breaking up with him now. And so the Declaration was sent throughout the colonies, and it was read in public squares out loud. And people were hearing, all these things like, we have rights. Yeah, we do. And the king has violated those rights. Yes, he has. And we're going to break up with him and become our own country now. Say what? People were hearing this for the first time in parts of the colonies. They're like, wait, did we really just do that? We just became our own country? Can we do that? Well, the only way we can do that is if we win the Revolutionary War. And so the Declaration of Independence gave the colonists that new cause to fight for, right? We have now declared ourselves independent, so let's keep fighting this war and let's win this war so we can actually become the United States of America, okay? In another video, I'm going to break down some of the important passages from the Declaration of Independence, so you will see those in the next video. So there you go. We are going to continue to analyze the meaning and implications of the Declaration of Independence this week.